I never thought I'd see the day when my ex-wife would lose it so completely in public. But there I was, standing at the Southampton Yacht Club's annual charity auction, watching Jessica transform from her usual entitled self into something I barely recognized. The evening had started like any other high society event. The club's main ballroom was decorated with crystal chandeliers, casting warm light over the crowd of Connecticut's elite. The smell of expensive cologne mixed with the salty breeze from the harbor. I'd been invited as a guest of my business partner Marcus, who had been a club member for over 20 years. I was examining a vintage sailing photograph when I heard that all too familiar voice cutting through the gentle murmur of conversation. "Excuse me, this is completely unacceptable." My stomach dropped. Jessica was standing near the registration table, her designer dress practically vibrating with indignation. Her blonde hair was pulled back in that severe bun she wore when she meant business, and her manicured finger was pointed directly at the young volunteer behind the desk. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but your name isn't on the member list," the volunteer explained patiently. She couldn't have been more than 22, probably a college student earning some extra money. "Do you have any idea who I am?" Jessica's voice rose an octave. "I'm Jessica Hamilton Crawford. My family has been contributing to this club for generations." I winced. Jessica had kept my last name after our divorce, hyphenating it with her maiden name to sound more prestigious. The truth was, neither of us had any connection to this club beyond Marcus's invitation to me. The volunteer checked her tablet again. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Hamilton Crawford, but I don't see your name here. Are you perhaps a guest of a member?" That's when Jessica's face turned that particular shade of red I remembered from our worst fights. "A guest? A guest? I don't need to be anyone's guest. This is ridiculous." Other attendees were starting to notice. Conversations quieted as heads turned in our direction. I considered walking over to diffuse the situation, but something held me back. Maybe it was the memory of all the times she'd embarrassed me with similar outbursts during our marriage. "Ma'am, please lower your voice," the volunteer said, her professional smile wavering. "If you'd like, I can call over the event coordinator." "Don't you dare tell me to lower my voice. I demand to speak to whoever's in charge right now." The irony wasn't lost on me. Here was Jessica, acting exactly like the entitled customer she used to complain about when she worked retail during college. But 15 years of marriage to me, 10 years of alimony, and her inheritance from her grandmother had transformed her into everything she once despised. Marcus appeared at my elbow. "Isn't that your ex-wife causing that scene?" I nodded, feeling heat creep up my neck. "Unfortunately, yes. Should we do something?" Before I could answer, the event coordinator arrived. Margaret Whitfield was in her 60s, with silver hair and the kind of authority that came from decades of managing high society events. She approached Jessica with the patience of someone who'd dealt with difficult people her entire career. "Good evening, I'm Margaret Whitfield. I understand there's some confusion about your invitation." Jessica whirled around, and I could see her calculating gaze sizing up this new opponent. Finally, someone with some sense. "This girl here refuses to acknowledge my membership status." "I see. And you are?" "Jessica Hamilton Crawford. My late grandmother was Eleanor Crawford, one of your founding members." Margaret's expression didn't change, but I caught the slight tightening around her eyes. "Mrs. Hamilton Crawford, I knew Eleanor Crawford personally. She was indeed a founding member. However, membership isn't hereditary, and our records show no current membership under your name." The color drained from Jessica's face, then returned with double intensity. "This is discrimination. You people are just trying to keep out anyone who doesn't fit your little old boys club." "Ma'am, this is a private club with clear membership procedures. If you'd like to apply for membership, I'd be happy to provide you with the necessary information." "Apply? Apply?" Jessica's shrill voice carried across the entire ballroom now. Every conversation had stopped. Even the string quartet had paused between songs. "I shouldn't have to apply for anything. Do you know how much money my family has donated to this place?" That's when I saw him approaching. Club security, dressed discreetly in a navy blazer, was making his way through the crowd. Behind him, I spotted what looked like actual police officers entering through the main entrance. This was about to get much worse than I'd imagined. The security guard reached our group just as Jessica was launching into another tirade about her family's supposed legacy. His name tag read Robert, and he had the calm demeanor of someone who'd handled his share of difficult situations. "Good evening, ma'am. I'm going to need you to lower your voice and step outside with me so we can discuss this privately." Jessica spun around to face him, and I could see the exact moment she made the worst decision of the night. Instead of accepting the offer to resolve this quietly, she doubled down. "Don't you dare touch me. I'm not going anywhere." She took a step back, bumping into a nearby cocktail table and sending champagne glasses crashing to the floor. The sound of breaking crystal seemed to echo through the silent ballroom. I watched as several elderly club members shook their heads in disgust. Mrs. Patterson, the wife of a federal judge, actually gathered her purse and walked toward the exit. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down," Robert said, his voice still professional but firmer now. "You're disturbing other guests." "I'm disturbing them?" They're the ones being unreasonable. Jessica gestured wildly at the room full of people. This is clearly some kind of conspiracy to keep me out. Margaret stepped forward again. Mrs. Hamilton Crawford, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. If you refuse, we'll have to call the police. Oh, the police are already here, Jessica said with a bitter laugh. I saw them come in. You people called them on me before you even tried to resolve this reasonably. She wasn't wrong about that, though I suspected the police presence wasn't originally meant for her. The Southampton Yacht Club regularly had security at large events, but Jessica's paranoia was feeding her anger, creating a feedback loop that was spiraling out of control. Nobody called the police on you specifically, Margaret explained patiently, but if you continue to disrupt this event, they will become involved. Fine, let them come. I want everyone here to see how you treat people. As if summoned by her words, 2 police officers approached our group. I recognized the older one, Officer Martinez, from local news coverage of various community events. He had the weathered face of someone who'd seen everything at least twice. Good evening, folks. We got a report of a disturbance? Margaret nodded toward Jessica. This woman is trespassing and refusing to leave when asked. Trespassing? Jessica's voice cracked with indignation. I have every right to be here. This is public discrimination. Officer Martinez looked at Jessica with the tired patience of someone nearing retirement. Ma'am, this is a private club. If they've asked you to leave and you refuse, that constitutes trespassing under Connecticut law. This is insane. You're all conspiring against me. I watched as my ex-wife's paranoia reached new heights. Her carefully applied makeup was starting to run slightly from the stress sweat, and her designer dress was wrinkled from her agitated movements. The woman who'd once prided herself on always looking perfect in public was falling apart in front of Connecticut's social elite. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one more time to leave voluntarily, Officer Martinez said. If you refuse, we'll have to escort you out. You'll have to arrest me first. I'm not leaving until someone acknowledges that I belong here. The second officer, younger and clearly less patient than his partner, stepped forward. Ma'am, we can arrange that if that's what you prefer. I saw the moment when Jessica realized she'd pushed too far. Her eyes widened as she looked around the room at all the faces staring at her. But instead of backing down, something seemed to snap inside her. This is because I'm divorced, isn't it? You people look down on divorced women. This is discrimination based on marital status. Ma'am, that's not... Margaret began. No, I know exactly what this is about. You're all part of some old boys network that protects your precious little club from people like me. Officer Martinez pulled out his handcuffs. Ma'am, you're under arrest for trespassing and disturbing the peace. That's when Jessica played her final desperate card. I'm a victim here. Jessica's declaration of victimhood echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear the distant sound of boats creaking in the harbor. I'm a victim of discrimination, she screamed again, as if saying it louder would make it more true. This is a hate crime. Officer Martinez paused in his approach, probably wondering if he'd missed something important. His younger partner looked equally confused. They exchanged a glance that seemed to ask, what exactly does she think she's a victim of? Ma'am, what specific discrimination are you claiming? Officer Martinez asked, clearly trying to be thorough. Jessica's eyes darted around the room desperately. I could practically see her brain scrambling for anything that might sound legitimate. They're discriminating against me because I'm a woman, and because I'm divorced, and because they don't like my dress. Several people in the crowd actually turned to look at each other with raised eyebrows. Her dress was a $3,000 designer piece that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Ma'am, there are plenty of women here tonight, the younger officer pointed out, gesturing around the room. Including divorced women. But not me. They don't want me here specifically. Margaret Whitfield stepped forward with her clipboard. Mrs. Hamilton Crawford, would you like me to read you the names of our current female members? We have over 200 women in good standing, including several who are divorced. That's different. They probably all paid bribes or something. I watched the crowd's reaction shift from curiosity to genuine annoyance. These were people who'd paid substantial membership fees and donated thousands to charity over the years. Implying they'd achieved their status through corruption was not winning Jessica any sympathy. Ma'am, you need to turn around and put your hands behind your back, Officer Martinez said, clearly done with the conversation. No, I demand a lawyer. I demand to speak to your supervisor. This is police brutality. Ma'am, nobody has touched you yet, the younger officer pointed out. But Jessica was beyond reason now. As Officer Martinez approached with the handcuffs, she began backing away, bumping into more tables and sending additional glasses crashing to the floor. Help me! Someone help me! They're attacking an innocent woman! Mrs. Whitmore, an elegant woman in her 70s, who'd been quietly observing from nearby, finally spoke up. Young lady, you are making an absolute spectacle of yourself. I suggest you accept the consequences of your behavior with some dignity. Dignity? You want to talk about dignity? Where's the dignity in ganging up on someone who just wants to be treated fairly? You were treated fairly, Mrs. Whitmore replied calmly. You were politely informed that you weren't on the guest list, offered assistance with membership information, and given multiple opportunities to leave quietly. Instead, you chose to disrupt everyone's evening. Jessica whirled toward her, and I saw that wild look in her eyes that I remembered from our worst fights. You don't know me. You don't know what I've been through. I'm a victim of an abusive marriage. My blood ran cold. She was talking about me, about our marriage. I felt every eye in the room shift in my direction as people tried to figure out who her ex-husband was. I suffered years of emotional abuse, Jessica continued, her voice breaking with practiced drama. And now I'm being victimized again by this corrupt system. Marcus grabbed my arm. Is she talking about you? I nodded, feeling my face burn with embarrassment. Our marriage had been difficult, sure, but abusive. We'd had our fights, but I'd never laid a hand on her, never even raised my voice until she pushed me to my breaking point. Officer Martinez had heard enough. Ma'am, turn around now, or we'll turn you around. This is because I'm speaking truth to power. You're all protecting the patriarchal system that oppresses women like me. The younger officer moved behind her while Martinez approached from the front. Jessica found herself cornered between them and the registration table. Last chance, ma'am. Jessica looked around the room one final time, and I saw the exact moment she realized that nobody was coming to her rescue. Not a single person in that room of over 100 people was stepping forward to defend her. I'm being persecuted for standing up for myself. That's when Officer Martinez grabbed her wrist and spun her around. The click of the handcuffs seemed to echo through the ballroom. You have the right to remain silent? But Jessica had no intention of remaining silent. As Officer Martinez began reading Jessica her Miranda rights, she launched into what could only be described as a complete meltdown. The handcuffs seemed to have triggered something primal in her, and whatever filter she'd had left completely disappeared. This is kidnapping. I'm being kidnapped by corrupt police. Her voice cracked with hysteria as the officers began escorting her toward the exit. But Jessica wasn't going quietly. She planted her feet and tried to resist, forcing the officers to practically drag her across the marble floor. Everyone look! Look at what they're doing to me. I'm an innocent victim. The crowd parted as they approached, creating a wide pathway toward the door. I could see people pulling out their phones, and I realized with horror that this was going to be all over social media within hours. Somebody record this. I want evidence of police brutality. Ma'am, we haven't used any force, Officer Martinez said calmly. You're walking under your own power. Dragging! You're dragging me. I'm being dragged out like a criminal. Mrs. Patterson, the judge's wife, who'd tried to leave earlier, was now standing near the door with her phone out. But she wasn't recording Jessica's persecution. She was recording Jessica's behavior. Young woman, Mrs. Patterson said firmly, I am the wife of Federal Judge Patterson, and I want you to know that your behavior tonight has been absolutely disgraceful. You should be ashamed of yourself. Jessica's head snapped toward her. A judge's wife? Then you should understand constitutional rights. This is illegal detention. This is the consequence of trespassing and disturbing the peace, Mrs. Patterson replied. I've seen real victims of injustice in my husband's courtroom. You are not one of them. The words hit Jessica like a slap. For just a moment, her manic energy faltered, but then she rallied for one final outburst. You're all part of the system. The corrupt system that protects rich white men and oppresses women like me. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. Jessica was a wealthy white woman in a designer dress, claiming oppression in front of a room full of people who'd donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to charity that very evening. As they reached the main entrance, Jessica made one last desperate play for sympathy. She turned to face the crowd, tears streaming down her face, makeup completely ruined. I just wanted to belong somewhere. I just wanted to be accepted. Is that so wrong? For a brief moment, I actually felt sorry for her. Behind all the entitlement and drama, there was something genuinely broken about the woman I'd once loved. But then she opened her mouth again. My ex-husband destroyed my life, and now you're all finishing the job. That was it. I'd had enough. I stepped forward from the crowd. Jessica, stop! She whirled around to face me, her eyes wide with surprise and fury. David? You're here? Did you set this up? I didn't set anything up. You did this to yourself. You turned them against me. This is all your fault. Officer Martinez looked at me with interest. Sir, are you the ex-husband she mentioned? Unfortunately, yes. Did you have anything to do with tonight's events? Absolutely not. I was invited as a guest by my business partner. I had no idea she would be here. Jessica's face twisted with rage. Liar! You planned this whole thing to humiliate me. Jessica, I haven't spoken to you in over a year. I had nothing to do with this. The younger officer shook his head. Ma'am, your ex-husband isn't even the one who called us. The club staff called when you started disrupting the event. But Jessica was beyond listening to reason. As they finally managed to get her to the door, she screamed one final accusation at the room. "You'll all pay for this. I'll sue every one of you. This isn't over." And then she was gone, her voice fading as they escorted her to the police car outside. The silence that followed was deafening. Over 100 people stood frozen, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Then, slowly, conversations began to resume. Margaret Whitfield approached me with an apologetic smile. "Mr. Crawford, I'm so sorry you had to witness that. Please don't let this incident reflect poorly on our club." "It doesn't," I assured her. "You handled it perfectly professionally." Marcus appeared at my side. "Well, that was certainly memorable." I looked around the room at all the faces staring at me with mixtures of sympathy and curiosity. My ex-wife had just publicly accused me of abuse in front of some of Connecticut's most influential people. But as I watched them gradually return to their conversations and charitable bidding, I realized something important. Nobody believed her. Her behavior had been so outrageous, so clearly unhinged that her accusations had lost all credibility. Mrs. Patterson approached me as I stood near the bar, trying to process everything that had happened. "Mr. Crawford, I want you to know that anyone who witnessed that woman's behavior tonight understands exactly what kind of person she is. Don't let her accusations worry you." "Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. That means a lot." As the evening continued, several other club members approached me with similar reassurances. Jessica's plan to humiliate me had completely backfired. Instead, she'd humiliated herself so thoroughly that anything she said lost all credibility. The next morning, videos of her arrest were trending on social media with hashtags like, "Sometimes the best revenge is just letting people show the world who they really are."